Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go?
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets RoundTable PodCast right here on all the channels. Hopefully, everybody is doing good tonight. And obviously, the Mets are playing the Rangers at the moment. If you still care about the games, congratulations. I ended up getting sunburn all over my face yesterday at the game with a couple of coworkers, but we're going to get right into it, guys. We know the big story today and over the last couple of weeks since the trade deadline has been Pete Alonso. I'm going to say let everybody say what up to you, everybody, and then we'll get right into the Alonso. So, Hayden, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? Hopefully everyone is doing extremely well. As for you, as I always say, besides the Mets, I'm doing well. Just ready for football at this rate. September is pretty much almost here. I'm ready for football. College football is almost back. So I'm kind of just focused on that, but just kind of waiting for the next miserable month to be over for the Mets and see other teams have fun in the playoffs while I get to sit here at school and, cry about the Mets and have everyone bully me about it. But with that said, all is going well. Mets Talk with Hayden is the name. Did a stream earlier today. I know I was kind of gone the last, week and a half, just kind of setting up back at school. So, I really appreciate everyone for tuning in on all ends. Obviously, good to see everyone here and in the chat. Let's go Mets. Let's go baseball, and excited to be here.
All right, Chris, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
What's up, everyone? Another edition of the RoundTable PodCast. Love to be back with the boys talking the Mets, and a nice little 2-0 lead here. But like you said, who really cares about these games anymore? We're just trying to get fast forward to October. So appreciate everybody. Always good to be back, like I said. And let's see what we got for today. Got some good topics, talking Mets baseball, and we're here no matter what every Monday night. So catch us on the stream. So CP New York Sports. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. I'm wearing my Knicks shirt. Can't wait for basketball season in addition to the football season as well. So I'm glad to be back. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Nelson, how you doing, buddy?
I'm here. I'm a country Met fan here. Appreciate everyone watching. If you haven't yet, you could head on over, like and subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it. Good to be here talking some Mets baseball. I mean, I don't know why we keep talking about this team, but we keep doing it. And we will continue to do it. I suppose we're gluttons for punishment. Also, I'm looking forward to football and basketball and anything else that's not the Mets. So this will be exciting. I guess we're winning, so good for us. Yay, Mets.
Absolutely. And we are loyal to the last out technically. So it is what it is at this point. And we know how it goes with this team right now. It's about leaks coming out from reporters, clubhouse, executives from other teams, technically. And I want to get started right away about the Bob Nightingale story. And again, it's Bob Nightingale. I don't know why nobody is talking about. Everybody couldn't wait to say, oh, look, they're trading Alonso. It's Bob fucking Nightingale. Can we relax about a guy that is wrong 99% of the time? And anytime a free agent rumor or a trade or an offseason report from Bob Nightingale comes out, nobody believes it. But yet, people cannot wait. Met fans, the fickle Met fans that a lot of them are all of a sudden ran with it and says, oh, they're trading him in the offseason. Where's Jeff Passan, Ken Rosendahl, Joel Sherman, the respected reporters for Major League Baseball, those guys? Why didn't they confirm that? Now, yes, others confirmed the Ken Rosendahl, Milwaukee Brewers calling the Mets, not Billy Epler calling the Brewers to see if they can get rid of Pete Alonso. So what is it? Is it the news that, and this is when people want to pick and choose what they want to believe and what they want to run with. And it's easy to get clicks to run with something like this, right? I didn't do a Pete Alonso trade video because I'm not looking just for views, because I think all this report is bullshit. Honestly, I truly believe that. I think Bob Nightingale is irrelevant, and he needed some clickbait, and he got it, and he won yet again, right? This isn't Arson Judge and John Heyman making a mistake. He probably got a wrong report from a team like the Giants who wanted to get out of something that I don't think they were really, really that interested in getting Aaron Judge. They just wanted to make their fan base feel good. And this is John Heyman making a mistake. This is Bob Nightingale who wants clicks. And he fooled everybody. I don't believe the Mets are trading Pete Alonso, guys. I don't believe it at all. I think it's a lot of smoke, because if it was that much of a threat, we would hear a lot more from more respectable reporters and a lot more leaks from the Mets organization and not MLB executives that already don't like the New York Mets and Steve Cohen. And by the way, when was the last time a reporter said anything good about the New York Mets? From player-wise, development-wise, organizational-wise. Do we know the media does not like the New York Mets? Even last year, they tried to throw every type of negativity, specifically Andy Martino, about the Mets during the trade deadline, before the trade deadline, in the offseason, everything. Guys, take a deep breath if you're a Mets fan, all right? Nobody has come out that is legitimate and say, this is what's happened in the offseason. And if they tell you that, they're probably lying, because there ain't much going on in New York sports in the baseball world. If you haven't noticed, we got 2 last place teams in New York who are not going to make the playoffs. Number 1 and number 2 in payroll. You want to bitch and moan about the payroll being high and not doing certain things in the offseason to get the right players? We can complain about that. But talk about something that has not happened yet is embarrassing. Let's wait until the offseason, and there's nothing to talk about for these baseball reporters in New York. So what are they going to do? They're going to come up with negative stories because they're going to make headlines. Positive stories about the Mets and the Yankees, nobody's going to care. I don't care if somebody says, oh, look how great Rafael Ortega is doing. That's not going to make me click on something. Oh, Pete Alonso is going to get traded in the offseason? Negative. Boom. Clickbait. Come on, guys. We should know better by now. We never learn. Hayden, what do you think about the Pete Alonso, Bob Nightingale story?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is an absolute joke. You guys know I'm probably the biggest Pete Alonso fan out there. Rob could attest. Him and I have been at spring training together, and he's seen me go nuts about him. Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to it, I think it's very upsetting that that's a story, and that's whether it's a possibility or just a story. I think it's upsetting by both. I think if you look at it, I agree. It's Bob Nightingale. He's a very suspicious reporter, has an interesting track record. John Heyman, hey, how's Arson Judge doing with San Francisco? So, I don't really trust Heyman or Nightingale. I think they're probably the 2 biggest frauds, or just not the best reporters, I guess you could say, is what I'm trying to allude. I get it. I think a lot of MLB and reporters just don't like the Mets. And like I said, Mets Yankees not playing well. Well, what is there to talk about now? Them beating the Angels in a boring game, so that's my thing. I think when it dives more into if Alonso is to get traded, I think that would be a joke. I think that would be a laughing stock, lol Mets. And frankly, I mean, if that happens under Steve Cohen, I would be shocked. I would hate to throw out the terms, but Cohen would lose the fan base. He would lose trust. He would lose popularity. He would lose the fan base's morale. I think that would pretty much means 2024 is a white flag. They're surrendering. Power hitters don't grow on trees. 40 home runs, 100 plus RBIs. Have fun getting that somewhere. And I don't want to hear, oh, well, he never won anything. Well, what protection has he had in this lineup? J.D. Davis, Dom Smith, Daniel Vogelbach, really? You can make the excuse, oh, Freddie Freeman was traded World Series with them. And then the Braves also were able to get an elite first baseman in return who's pretty much posted similar numbers to Freddie Freeman. So unless there's a suspicious first baseman out there, John Doe, that I don't know about, But yeah, no, you do not trade Pete Alonso. I do not let him trade. You do not let him walk. If I'm Steve Cohen and Billy Epler, the first thing I'm doing when the World Series is over, I know there's like that week after where you can't make moves. The first thing I'm doing is extending Pete Alonso. That would be the absolute first thing I would do. And it's interesting because I think it comes to the factor is what are they going to do with the president of operations? Is David Stearns, let's say he does come to New York, is his first move going to want to be departing with Alonso? I mean, it doesn't sound, it's not very good. I'm trying to think who was the, and ironically, I'm wearing the hat. Who was the Red Sox president of ops when they traded away Mookie? I'm blanking on his name. It was,
It wasn't Theo. I know that.
Whoever it was. And then you can make the excuse about that. Well, how'd that trade go? How's Mookie Betts doing in LA and the guys that, LA got in return. So, I think when it comes down to it, I think it would be an embarrassment. The fact is that Heimblum, yeah, right. And you can make the argument he was new when he traded away Mookie Betts, and that's been a disaster of a trade since. You bring back Jeff McNeil, you bring back Brandon Nimmo, you bring back Edwin Diaz. That's fine. I have no problem with that. I think they're great Mets, whatever. But then you don't bring back Pete Alonso, who, no offense to them, Alonso's much better than them. Yeah. So I'm just very confused. And, I get the whole thing, oh, you represent the front of the jersey, not the back. Well, trading away franchise players is kind of a sting. Dare I say, the Wilpons kept theirs. So, yeah. Overall, when it comes down to it, I think it would be an embarrassment to the organization for them to trade away Alonso. Because I would imagine he likes it here. I mean, you see him. He's, LFGM. He's funny. He's very goofy, very giggity. You could tell he likes it here. I mean, he likes Jeff. He likes Lindor. He likes Nimmo. So I think it would be a dire need to keep him. I really don't need to continue to explain why. I think it's kind of common knowledge why you want to keep your homegrown generational all-star slugger talent. So yeah. And I mean, I'm easy. When it comes to paying him, that's how it works in free agency. You're supposed to pay them. That's not my job to determine how much he's getting paid. That's the job of Billy Epler, Alonso, and I forgot who Alonso's rep is, but that's their point. If you're going to go out, he's 28, going to be 29 probably in December. I think, like we said with Pete, I think it's more the years he wants than the money.
That's what I think.
And listen, are you going to take the risk of giving Alonso a guy who probably isn't going to age great? I think when he's like 38, I don't think, he'll be that athletic, considering his, physical shape. But, is that a risk the Mets are going to take? Would they take the risk of, they're giving him an 8-year deal, 9-year deal, probably 8, and only getting, 5 years of really good performance out of him and kind of, eating up those other years. You don't want that to turn into, a Pujols-like situation. But, yeah, I think it's a deal that would need to happen. 7-8 years. He's going to be 29. So if you compare him a little lower to Freeman and Olsen, I know Freeman's a little bit older, but probably look at like a AAV of 25 million or something around those lines, 23 million. So I think that'd be a ideal contract that I would probably go around with Pete. Plus, you give him the hometown discount. I mean, I would say he would take a discount. I mean, you look at a lot of the Braves. I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean Murphy, I think, is from Georgia. He took the hometown discount. So, yeah, Mets need to re-sign him back. They need to extend him. If you trade him, lol Mets, and, Cohen can make all the donut chicken sandwiches you want. No one's going to go to the ballpark.
Yeah, listen. I one thing that you said, Hayden, that I agree with you is that how can these reporters know so much about trading Pete Alonso yet the Mets don't are going to
If
get
he
a
if he
wait,
turns it down, if he turns it down, then he turns it down. But
yeah,
the point is, you have to go out there and you have to make an attempt on getting him back. Right
well,
now, there's no evidence that there's an
yeah,
attempt.
well. Again, but we also don't know what he's asking for either, right? He can walk in and says, "Well, I'm a better power hitter than Aaron Judge. Power hitters get paid. I want Aaron Judge money." Then what do? You're just gonna pay him because you have the money. That is the
Yeah, then you
worst.
have to make a decision, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like everybody's gonna say, "Oh, just pay him." But even if he asks for 7 years, say if he asks for Judge money, right? Is he worth that? You know what?
No.
I'll sign Reese Hoskins for probably half that.
But at least if the
Well,
Mets go out there and show an attempt, I want them to at least make an attempt on
but see,
bringing him
that's the
back.
thing. We don't know. I think what Cohen has done throughout his entire tenure so far, the first couple of years of his ownership, we haven't heard offers ever leaked out that he's attempted to make with any player. Nimmo, McNeil, we didn't know nobody knew about the McNeil contract until it
Yeah.
happened. So we really don't know. And the thing that I talked about, what you just said about Stearns, why are these reporters saying that it's a guarantee they're trading Pete Alonso when we all know that Billy Epler is not going to have full control? So David Stern, and like you said, is going to be the first guy, the first move he makes as a baseball ops guy is to trade Pete Alonso. I find that very hard to believe. I don't think there's any decision yet until Stearns gets in office for the Mets. That's the way I see it. So, Chris, what do you think about the Alonso report by Nightingale and so on and so forth?
I mean, yeah, you can never trust Bob Nightingale. I think everybody knows that by now. And there's a couple things that I want to just touch on.
Yeah.
Hayden touched on it already. 7 to 8 years is probably a sweet spot for a contract, regardless of whether you get the production for the first 5 years or maybe he gets, he produces well all eight. I don't think he's a guy like Hayden said that will age well. But you never know at this point. Another thing is that I don't know if Pete Alonso is too happy. You can't say definitively that he's happy with the Mets. Everything that he says in these press conferences is one thing, but I just don't know. And I made the video about I saw someone comment in here, and I made the video about him continuously getting plunked. I'm not sure that plays too much of it, too much of a role into his quote unquote happiness with the Mets organization. But you can't be thrilled if I'm a ball player and I'm getting plunked and hit continuously. I'm not thrilled by my manager's lack of I won't say retaliation because I just don't know what it is. But there's no fire, there's no fight, and I don't know. Maybe he could show that himself. I know Nelson said that multiple times, but there is something to be said about Alonso's mental status, when it comes to the New York Mets. He can say he wants to be a Met for life all he wants. He can say that. Pete's generally good at giving media questions or media answers to their questions, but no one really will know until he comes out and the actual reports come out of what he asks for. Now, as it relates to what he's going to ask for, I don't think he's going to take that hometown discount that Hayden was talking about. I don't think he's going to take that. He has no reason to take that, minus maybe being that homegrown town, like you said. But that's one thing. But it's not like he was born in New York. It's not like he's from New York. And I don't know. I just don't see any reason for him to take that kind of discount. You talk about Matt Olson. Everyone wants to talk about Matt Olson. Matt Olson's contract AAV is not feasible to what the Braves gave him. They undersold him by a long shot. I talked about this with Nelson on Interstate Mets Report. Freeman's making what, 27, somewhere around there, AAV. These contracts, regardless of the talent gap between Alonso and Freeman, because let's face it, Freeman is the best first baseman in the game, right? We all know that hands down. These contracts still, there's new contract barriers and they reset themselves. The market resets itself all the time. So who's to say that Alonso won't reset the market? Or who's to say Vlad Guerrero Jr., when his time comes around to Blue Jays, who's to say he doesn't reset the market and finally puts the first baseman at $30+ million a year? And I get it. Everyone's worried about this Pete Alonso's production this year. For the amount of home runs he hits, which is basically 40 in a good season plus. We saw that one year, obviously he hit 53. He's a career 250 plus hitter. That's great. That's phenomenal for a guy who hits with that much power. And you could say 250 still bad. I understand that. But what other power hitters giving you 40 plus, 50 plus bombs and hitting in the 300s? You'll be hard pressed to find somebody. Yes, M-Easy, I know Pete Alonso is not better than Vlad Jr. I'm just talking about contract-wise, the contracts for each position. You saw the contracts at the shortstop position. They always reset themselves with some sort of free agent class. I don't know if Alonso is going to be the one to do it, but I know that him and his team are most likely going to be asking for that. I'm not saying he's going to be making 30 plus, but I'm at the bare minimum, he's going to be asking for Freddie Freeman money, which is $27 million a year. Are we comfortable paying that? What's the difference between the 27 mark, 28 mark, and then the 25 mark that Hayden just said? $3 million. We set the precedent already that the Mets are willing to overspend on talent with 3 more years to Cohen. And I get it. You can't set that precedent for everybody, which is what I'm saying. The Mets might actually push back, which is what I'm saying. If they don't come to a conclusion, it's feasible that we don't see Alonso here long term. But is that really going to happen over a $3 million difference? I'm not too convinced. They're saying Aaron Judge is the other guy who gets you 30 or 40 plus bombs with 300 average. I feel like nobody's Shohei or Judge. They're the two guys at the top of this league, and nobody really compares to them. So I don't think that's a good example. But listen, all I'm saying is that I'm an advocate for Pete Alonso being here long term. I don't think that it's as clear cut as we're all making it to be. I think that Hayden, you're absolutely right. The Mets need to make a viable push for Pete Alonso. At least show the fans that you're making an attempt at him and not letting your franchise player walk. That's a great point. But at the same time, I don't think he's going to take that discount. And I don't think that he's going to – I just flat out think that he's going to be asking for more than anybody in this chat is willing to pay him. Because it seems like everybody's comfortable giving him 24, 25, and he comes out asking for 27, 28. By the sounds of this chat, we don't want to re-sign him for 27, 28. Okay, so then once he walks or once we trade him to get value back for him, everyone's going to be like, oh, it was only $4 million difference per year. We got Steve Cohen, the richest owner in baseball. So I'm just saying, when it comes down to it, pick a side of the fence and stay there. Yeah. Because if we're all saying in the chat he's not worth 27,
I agree with that.
And he leaves, you better stick with that narrative, because I don't want to hear, oh, it was just $3 million difference between what the club wanted to pay him and what Alonso was asking for. So I just want to make that known. But I do want Pete Alonso here in the future. I would be comfortable giving him Freddie Freeman money, at least matching that contract, because I don't think that power grows on trees. So that's my take on it. And like I said, I don't trust the reports. And like you said, Rob, until it comes from Rosenthal or Passan, Bob Nightingale's not on that same territory, or maybe even Heyman. I know he has his slip-ups, but I respect Heyman's work. So that's just a clear line differential that I wanted to draw for the people.
Yeah, and you're correct, Chris. And yeah, there's a line. And look, Met fans were on the fence with Jacob deGrom, right? They wanted Jacob deGrom back, but when they saw those 5 years with the Rangers, there was still some Met fan that says, "Oh, you have to give it to him because he's our guy." He was the face of the franchise when deGrom was here, not Pete Alonso. It was deGrom, and now all of a sudden, Met fans, they're very quiet about Jacob deGrom. All of a sudden, aren't they? Right? So clearly, the Mets knew something. And they were right. No matter if deGrom comes back over the next 4 years of the contract and pitches well, he wasn't helping us now. And it goes back to the same thing with Pete Alonso. Why do we just assume that it's the Mets' fault? How do we know that it's Pete Alonso is not the one causing a major rift between contract discussions? Like Chris says, does he really want to be here? Yeah, he says it with the media because Pete Alonso is very good with the media. I just said that in my opening. He's very good with the media. Just because he says that, and again, fickle Met fans, they believe everything. everything that comes out of Pete Alonso's mouth, they're going to believe. And not saying that he's lying. We don't know. But let's not act like he's telling the truth. We don't know that. Look, the production on the field is the production on the field. We all know that. But we all know it's about 80% what's on the field, because how many great players never won a championship, right? Ken Griffey Jr., he's great, right? Hall of Famer, never won a World Series, right? You can go through hundreds of great players that never won anything. And some that may even win the World Series, get into a World Series. The fact of the matter is, let's not act like it's all the Mets' fault when it takes two to tango, and Pete Alonso has a big part in that. We don't know if Pete Alonso wants to be here, right? Because I checked his numbers. In May and June this year, right? Face of the franchise. Protection or not, I don't care what, right? If he can hit with no protection, then he should be putting up the same amount of numbers. He had terrible, and I'm talking about worst players, like top 5 in baseball, with numbers that consider what he's supposed to do. In May and June, when the Mets were technically still in it, he was nowhere to be found. And that's a huge problem, because also in September of last year, I looked at it. He had a decent September. But when you're the face of the franchise, when you get all the credit when things go right, now we don't want to give Pete Alonso the blame when he's the guy that has to put the team on his shoulders. I don't want to hear about Lindor, right? Anytime anything goes right, it's because of Pete Alonso. It's because Pete Alonso this, Pete Alonso that. But he don't get none of the blame. I'm sorry. There's a reason why Steve Cohen overpaid for Nimmo. There's a reason why he gave Jeff McNeil an extension. Why is that? So if Nimmo or McNeil, as some people might say, could have been the problem with this toxic environment in the clubhouse, then why they sign him? Because if it's not them, and for the most part, it's not Lindor, at least what we've been told. And if it is Lindor, well, who knows, right? Then there's a real problem. But who's easier to trade? Pete Alonso, right? Unfortunately. But not saying that anybody wants to trade Pete Alonso. But the fact of the matter is, let's not give all the blame to the Mets when Pete Alonso is the same person that can walk into that office and say, I want $290 million over 8 years. What are you going to do if you're Steve Cohen? Yeah, because I got $14 billion, I'm just going to make you sign that contract. That's a dangerous game to play. Yeah, Chris, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask in terms of just a hypothetical replacement before we let Nelson go. I apologize, Nelson. Who, like, I'm not comfortable having one of these guys like a Parada or maybe even a Clifford if he makes that transition to first base eventually in the major leagues. I'm not comfortable with those guys being replacements when they get up from, they're only an A-ball right now. So who's the replacement?
Yeah, I mean, but again, at the same time, we're losing with Pete Alonso as well, right? His 40 and 130, we're losing. And again, it's not all because of him. It takes a team effort, but we get no blame. Certain players don't get no blame in this town, right? Aaron Judge hasn't had a bad thought from a Yankee fan, even though he's batting 200 in the playoffs. Right? He don't get no blame, but it's everybody else, right? Oh, it's this guy's fault. It's that guy's fault, right? Stanton gets no credit in this town as a Yankee fan, yet he's been their best postseason hitter over the last couple of years. Not Aaron Judge, but who gets all the credit when things go right? Aaron Judge. That's the problem that I have. Like, give me a guy that bats 260, 25 home runs, and 85 RBIs if that can get you somebody else in this lineup that can put close production about 250, 25, and 80. And now you got two guys that are hitting what one guy hits in Alonso, but there's other things that come involved, right? I can't have Alonso go a month where he's batting 178 in June. That's what he did. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. Your biggest bat in the lineup is basically non-existent in the lineup in the worst month of the season that basically cost you any chance of a playoff spot. That's the problem that I have. So we don't want to, if he was, let me put it this way. If Lindor was in Alonso's spot, who wasn't a homegrown player, you think anybody would give a damn if the Mets wanted to trade Lindor? No, because half the Met fans don't like Lindor. But because Alonso puts a smile on his face in the media, makes these jokes, LFGM, Donnie Stevenson, the bullshit hitting coach and all that stuff. He makes all these jokes. I can give a shit what jokes he puts. And listen, I went to his charity event this year with his wife. It's a great event. He's a great guy. I met him in Pittsburgh. He's a nice guy. He spoke to me for 5 minutes. But it does not mean that he isn't the problem. And it's not all about just the production on the field, right? Bryce Harper puts great numbers. Why couldn't the Nationals go far? All of a sudden, the Phillies finally made the playoffs with Bryce Harper. It's not a coincidence that the best player on your team gets traded or signs a free agent deal with somebody else, and the Nationals win the World Series the next year. Sometimes there might be something that a little, I would say, ego that might be hurting his clubhouse more than we actually think. And why hasn't anybody talked about the toxicity, the Pete Alonso being the problem? You know why? Because the media loves Pete Alonso. They want his exclusive, his story, his voice as the number one talking point. That's what I think is the biggest problem. I truly believe that. Nelson Ged, I'm sorry, guy. I'm sorry, buddy.
You're good. I hate to repeat points, so I'm gonna keep it short. Well, first, I guess I would touch on the thing Chris said about there's not that many guys that hit 270 through to 300 and hit 30, 40 bombs. This year, there's actually a few. I'm not gonna sit here and name them all, but obviously Ohtani's one, Matt Olson, Mookie Betts. I think Luis Robert's hitting around 270, Austin Riley, Rafael Devers. These are all guys that are going to hit 30-something homers and hit over 270. So it's not like it's unheard of. So Pete, I'd like to see Pete hit for a little higher average. I'm not a big average guy. I don't cry over batting average, but I also don't want Kyle Schwarber on my team. So I'm not saying Pete's turning into Kyle Schwarber, but if that's where he becomes going forward, that's going to suck if we pay him Freddie Freeman money for a DH that hits 200 and hits 40 homers, but is flirting with the Mendoza line every year. So that's my fear in paying him. Overall, I'd like to keep him. I have a limit. My personal limit would be around 24, 25 mil. If they give him Freddie Freeman money, I can live with it. If they go more than that, I think that's a little crazy. I would not give him more than Freddie Freeman money. I just think that's too much for him. And solid points were made by Rob and maybe Chris as well, so a couple other people. But it's not necessarily just the Mets here. Like, we don't know what is going on behind the scenes. If he's being unreasonable and he wants $300 million, I'm sorry, but you're not getting it. And maybe that's what the sticking point is, and that's why these rumors are coming out. Granted, like we all said, Bob Nightingale's a joke. Nobody should believe anything he has to say. As far as that comment's concerned, the Orioles are never trading Jackson Holiday, so you can get that idea. A big prospect call would definitely be what we would look for, and I'd want someone of that ilk, sure, but the Orioles, A, they wouldn't trade him because he's the number one prospect in all of baseball. B, they don't have the money to pay Pete. They're cheap as hell. They're never going to pay him. So that any Orioles rumor, as much as it would be nice because they do have the best farm system in all of baseball, I just would take any rumor with the Orioles with a grain of salt because they can't pay anybody. So unless it's some guy that they're from us that's super cheap, they're just not going to take him on. But yeah, I just be careful giving Alonso that much money. I'd be careful listening to these reporters. Like you said, Rob, we don't know what David Stearns wants. If David Stearns comes in and says, I'm keeping Pete, no matter what, it's not like Steve Cohen's going to say, okay, well, no. He's going to go with what Stearns wants. If Stearns does want to trade Pete, then he's probably going to trade Pete. And I'm just saying Stearns. It could be whoever's a president of baseball operations. We're assuming it's Stearns. It's probably going to be Stearns. But yeah, it's going to come down to what he wants. So any rumors regarding anything, not just Alonso, Ohtani, Alonso, any other trades, they don't mean shit because we don't have a president yet. And what that president wants is probably what's going to happen. We're speculating without – Billy Epler's not making these calls. I'm sorry. He's just not. So I don't – that's why I don't believe they were ever going to trade unless they were like completely blown away. They were never going to trade him this deadline because that's not ultimately going to be Billy Epler's call. It's just not. They're not going to let it happen. Just like if Ohtani were to come here, that's not. I mean, yeah, he has the connection, but ultimately not Billy Epler's call. It's just not. He's not the guy. You know, he's not the guy. That press conference that Cohen did basically said he's not the guy. He's waiting for Stearns. When Stearns gets in here, they'll all get together and figure out what the hell's going on. Hopefully it's an extension because like I've said before, I do not want to hear this fan base go batshit crazy over Pete Alonso not being on this team. I just don't want to hear it. To me, yes, it would suck if he's gone, but I'm always a front of the jersey guy, so I don't care who you are, what my attachments are. If it's better for the team, and it means he's gone, he's gone. If it's not, if they make a stupid ass trade for crap, then yeah, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. But if it's a solid trade, if we get a really good return, if he's just giving them the sign that he's just not going to sign a contract with us, then you have to move on because you don't want to get stuck in a Jose Reyes situation where you kept them and he left and you got nothing for him. We kept David Wright. David Wright was never really going to leave. He always said he wanted to stay. And he took peanuts to stay, to be honest. That didn't even work out for us, of course, because he ends up getting hurt. But you don't want a Jose Reyes situation or any other star or an Ohtani with the Angels. They kept him. Now he's like, he can't pitch anymore. He's more than likely out the door, and they're going to get nothing for him when he walks away. But like, if you got a star that's going to walk away and you know he's going to walk away, you got to get rid of him. So I'm not going to bitch about that if it happens. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? The Mets also, and for all the Wilpon lovers, all of a sudden, listen up. Jose Reyes walked away and they never offered him a contract when he went to the Marlins. We all forget about that one too, right? He was the face of the franchise too, him and Wright, right? The left side of the infield. Supposed to be here their entire career. Never offered him a contract. So let's be easy on the Wilpons for a second. And they never added on teams that were actually really good. And yeah, you said it, Nelson. You're right about that. And again, there's too many examples. Again, how many Yankee fans said they were going to boycott the Yankees if they didn't sign Aaron Judge, right? You know what that Aaron Judge contract has done now? Stop them from doing more in the lineup now. And look at them, right? They signed a pitcher that is always hurting Rodon that, oh, by the way, some Met fans actually wanted him too. We all remember that, right? So, you know, we talk about this franchise, this organization now like they're the worst franchise in baseball. Like people were saying, oh, let's be more like the Orioles. Let's be more like the Rays. Well, then you should trade Pete Alonso because that's what those teams do, right? They don't sign those guys. They get a holdback for those type of guys. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. Look, in a perfect world, nobody wants to trade Pete Alonso. But before we get the whole story, let's not just kill the Mets. And again, once again, guys, numbers are everything, right? How did the Yankees do last year with Aaron Judge being the American League home run king, right? I mean, you can have a great player, and just because he puts up great numbers, it's not everything. It's not everything because, again, if you're relying on that one guy for the most part, and he has a bad month like Pete Alonso had in June, then what? Like, you can blame the organization to not getting more people in. Again, who did people want? Because people wanted Correa. A lot of us were excited about Correa. He's not doing very well. How would he be protecting Pete right now? Pete Alonso's going to put up the numbers. But we've also lost Every year he's been up here, except for last year. And we know how that ended. So he's not the only one. It's a team effort. But if you can lose with him, I mean, what do you do? But we also have to know what Pete Alonso is asking for. The problem is that if the reporters actually want to actually do their job, how about doing everything you can to find what Pete Alonso is asking for before we're killing the Mets and putting up these accusations from about trades when we don't even have a president of baseball ops. We all know Billy Epler's not making the decisions next year, this offseason. So I just don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. And maybe it is the Mets being a little cheap with the money, which I still don't believe that. And like Chris says, if it's $2 or $3 million a year difference, I don't think they're going to go crazy. I mean, they completely overpaid for Brandon Nimmo when they did not have to. And so I don't think the money is the problem. I think it's the years he's probably asking for. This is Alonso's one big contract. He's not getting another one. He does not. The same thing with Aaron Judge. He knows he wasn't getting another one. He needed, right? He wasn't going to sign with the Yankees until they added on the extra year. It wasn't the money. It was the year. And I think that's what we have to look at when it comes to Pete Alonso. I think it's more the years than the money. You know, Pete Alonso can walk in here and says, I want 9 years. I mean, and the Mets are like, I don't know. Well, no, maybe their first offer was probably 6. I think that's a nice number right there, a nice year number. In my opinion, 6 years, I like 6-year deals. I think that's a hell of a lot better because you get him just when he's about to decline out of his prime. And again, we also don't know how Pete Alonso is going to do after 30, right? Guys break down. Pete Alonso's not in the best shape as a Major League Baseball player. You know, he can get very bad very quickly. Not saying he will, but we just don't know. And I think until we know the whole story, to assume that it's all the Mets' fault is just crazy to me. And maybe Pete Alonso is always telling the truth to the media and is not really penny pinching here and trying to get every penny. But why aren't we talking more about blaming Pete Alonso without not taking a hometown discount? He always talks about wanting to be here. How about saying, you know what, guys? I'll take $3 million less. And let's not fight over $3 million. And maybe we can use that money and just go a little bit more crazy next offseason and sign more pitchers. He could have done that. Why hasn't he? Why hasn't he come out there and said that? You know, he loves the franchise, right? That's what he says to the media. Either he's lying to everybody or the Mets are just botching this whole situation. But yet it seems like everybody's going on the Mets are botching it because they're just blaming Pete Alonso. If Pete Alonso's not going to take a hometown discount and he gets an astronomical number from the Mets or somebody else, then he's been lying to us the whole fucking time. And then what you're going to say? Because if somebody pays him $280 million over 7-8 years, are you really going to be mad at the Mets for not making that deal? Then Pete Alonso lied because he could have took a few $1 million less, right? A couple of players have done it. I mean, Judge left money on the table, right? The Padres offered him over $400 million. He didn't want to go there. You know, Gausman didn't want to come to the Mets, took less money to go to the Blue Jays, right? Players do that. If they want to be somewhere, they will take a little bit less money. I'm not telling you about $100 million less, but you know, $5-6 million over a course of a contract, maybe 10. That's going to make or break him not being here. If you really want to be somewhere, you're going to make it work out. And that also determines it for the player's decision as well. Hayden, I want to get to you with the free agent targets. And the reason why I brought that up, if you looked at the thumbnail, I did put Rhys Hoskins. That's why I brought it up earlier. What if the Mets can go to the Brewers and say, listen, Burns is not really working out with you, right? And this is mostly a trade, but we're going to mix it in together, right? What if the Mets go, listen, you're not signing Burns. He's already pissed off about the arbitration stuff. You wanted Pete Alonso last year. How about we do a 1-for-1 swap? Both of them, I believe Burns has a 1 year left on his deal as well. How about if Pete Alonso for Burns, and I'm assuming it would probably have to be a even swap, maybe another prospect for a prospect or another fielder for a field, something like that. But what are you thinking if something like that comes where you're going to bring an ace pitcher in and sign a guy like Rhys Hoskins? All right, he's not going to hit 50 home runs. We know that. he's not great defensively. I mean, maybe Pete Alonso's a little bit better, but it's not that much of a difference. I mean, offensively it is. But if that helps you to get another player you can bring somebody in, say like a Bellinger for the outfield, that could probably hit 25 home runs, right? But it adds up to Pete Alonso's one. Would you do that knowing that you can get an ace here along with what other free agents you're going to get?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, being honest, I probably have to decline on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Corbin Burns isn't necessarily super happy with the Milwaukee organization. We know past offseason, he kind of threw the Brewers under the bus over the whole, like Rob said, the arbitration years. He was a little feeling very inadequate about that. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to, I guess, the starting pitching and the starting pitching trade market this offseason, I think it's more trades out there that you are going to have to explore. There's a couple starting pitchers on the free agent market that I think could fit into a nice role. Julio Urias is one guy that I've liked. I know a lot of people have said him in the past. I know he's not having the best season this year, but I think a lot of that is just, some injuries from, the last couple months and last year kind of still lingering on. Great innings eater. I mean, with LA, we saw he'd go out there, throw you 6, 7, 8 innings. I mean, keeps the pitch count really intact. So Urias is a great lefty arm. Very reliable, prime age still. So I think, Julio Urias could be a nice target, especially, with his value kind of being low due to this year. That's also kind of a plus benefit there. Even if it's someone like Kenta Maeda, I'm trying to think who's the guy from, forgot Hyun-Jin Ryu kind of fell off, but like I said, the Mets are going to go out and sign starting pitching this offseason at a lesser value. But the keyword trade. And I think that's a big reason why the Mets went out this trade deadline and got a lot of infielders. I know everyone's saying, the Mets traded away Scherzer and Verlander, but got no starting pitching in return. Well, they got infielders. Trade them. You got a stacked infield farm system. Use those guys in trades and, call up teams that have a good rotation or, teams that are selling and use those prospects in return. So I think there definitely can be trades for starting pitchers. I don't think Alonso will be a part of that, obviously, but I wouldn't be surprised if a big reason Epler and the organization beefed up the infield farm system is for that. I think for them to go out this offseason and trade for some starting pitching, and pick up contracts that are, within reason that won't, do anything, I guess, horrible to maybe the team's payroll or I don't know, whatever their philosophy is now. Yeah. Erod's another candidate too. I think he has, I don't think he's a free agent. I think he has an opt-out. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if he accepts that opt-out. I know he doesn't want to go to LA. So, I guess that's one team out of the picture. So he could be a decent arm. Kind of curious to see how he goes into New York, though. He could be an interesting candidate. But I definitely wouldn't be against the Mets going out there and using some of the prospects they acquired at this past trade deadline and using them to go out and sign and trading for some starting pitching, as well as, also touching the market. Like I said, guys like Julio Urias could definitely be an interesting candidate. If Erod opts out of that contract, he could be another interesting candidate. Like I said, I don't have it in front of me, but I know guys like Kenta Maeda, even if it's like 4 or 5 guys, kind of explore how that is. I don't know. I personally, I don't think, everyone kind of praises Jeremy Hefner and calls him this pitching guru. I hate to say it, but I think the times of Jeremy Hefner being a praised pitching coach is kind of done and over with. The fact is, I'm not trying to change the subject, but it's the same thing with Drew Smith. It's the same thing with half of these arms that they've had. And I'll tell you, if we're talking about pitching, one guy I'd like to let go is Jeremy Hefner. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and it is. Yeah, I get.
He's also not Cohen's guy too, so that could be another thing.
True. Anybody else want to jump in on that? What were we talking about just now? You're on mute, I think. Hold on, can't hear you, Chris. Hold on. Uh-oh. Nope, can't hear you. Yeah, guys. So exactly like Hayden was saying, look, nobody wants to trade Pete Alonso. It's just a matter of can you actually sign him? I think that's the issue that we're all trying to figure out here, because it's not just, again, it always takes two to tango. We keep on talking about the same thing with that. Chris, you good?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Get it, buddy.
Okay, cool. I was just gonna jump in. I mean, while we're on, I don't know if you're alluding for the 2024 free agent markets, or the free agent market, but in terms of filling in the rotation, as it pertains to starting pitching, there's so many ways that the Mets can go about this, because they have Quintana, who's going to be here. They have Senga, who's going to be here. I think a guy that everyone's banking on, obviously, is Yamamoto, but the way to backfill that rotation, obviously, in the back is going to be Vassell. And then probably, if you want to wait out for Blade Tidwell to develop more, I know he's in Double-A right now, you can go ahead and give someone that we probably don't want at the fifth spot, that fifth rotation spot next year, and then wait maybe to bring up Tidwell mid-year. Now, as it pertains, so I just want to hop in and just say, hell no, I'm not trading Pete Alonso for Corbin Burns straight up. That is not something that I'm doing. I just can't see myself doing that. Not when Hayden said we have these excess of infield prospects. The Brewers love their prospects. Make a I don't care. You have three untouchables. You have three untouchables in this farm system. It's Drew Gilbert, Luis Angel Acuna, and Jet Williams. You don't touch those guys. Anybody else? Marco Vargas. Maybe, I mean, you could say maybe Clifford could be an untouchable, but to me, he's not there yet. That's just me personally speaking. You have these excess prospects, Alex Ramirez. You trade those guys for a Corbin Burns. And if you want to trade Pete Alonso this offseason, if you're dead set on it, you get MLB. You get MLB ready talent hitting wise, maybe like those guys, like you said, that'll give you 270 or whatnot. I don't have any names on the top of my head who you treat Pete Alonso for, but it's not a starting pitcher that I think he's 28, 29 as well already. But I don't think that a power hitter like Pete Alonso equates to bringing in an ace like that. Not when you have an ace that's in a Brewers organization where you have the leverage. If you're the trade, you're the opposition of the trade deal in the Mets. You know Corbin Burns doesn't really want to be with Milwaukee, so we presume you have presumably Stearns coming in. You have all the leverage if you're the Mets to make that trade with the Brewers anyways. I don't see how you give in and give him Pete Alonso. So that's my take on that, is that I'm not trading Pete Alonso for Corbin Burns.
Yeah, I only brought that up only because, like 1 year deals left on a contract. That's it. I'm not saying I would trade Pete Alonso for Corbin Burns. I think you have enough prospects in the system now to, make that trade a lot easier. And the Brewers don't want to take on a rental, I don't think. I mean,
like you said, it's Yamamoto. I think everybody's linking him to the Mets. Even Ken Rosenthal. We talk about reporters. Yeah. Rosenthal put out an article saying that the Mets are going to be heavily in on Yamamoto. So you can. I don't want to say bank it in, but Yamamoto's probably their top target, I would say. Yeah. Like you said, either trade for that third starter, or you can sign Urias as well, because I am comfortable signing Urias as well to a 4-year deal, something like that, which I think he's going to want. So there's a lot of ways to backfill that rotation, but I wouldn't sleep on Vassell coming up for that fifth spot as well. And we might even see him before in September. Who knows? But I think that he's killing in AAA. Yeah, he's killing in AAA. I don't know why people aren't talking about him. So I think that's one guy that everybody should watch out for, that fifth star spot, because we cannot go into the season next year with Tyler McGill or David Peterson. I know they're throwing some good ball games. I think McGill's had a solid outing today, and then Peterson last go around, I think it was yesterday against the Angels. But I'm tired of seeing those guys. Give Vassell a shot at least.
Yeah. And Nelson, you got anything on that, buddy? I'm sorry, I want to get you.
Yeah. If I'm trading Alonso to the Brewers specifically, I'm not doing it for Burns.
Yeah.
I'm asking for guys like Sal Frelick, Jacob Mizorowski, who's a solid pitching prospect. They have both of those guys are top 50 prospects. I want guys like that. And if I could get I'd prefer to have some sort of major league ready talent. I know Frelick is, I think, close. Actually, he's up.
It was actually I was just gonna say he's up.
Yeah. So he's had about 30 games. So that would be not a bad get. And then Mizorowski, like I said, he's in Double-A. I think he's their 38th prospect. I like him. To So yeah, that's the kind of guys I'm looking for from them if I'm trading Pete. But I'm not necessarily looking to, like I said, I was not necessarily looking to trade Pete. But if you can't hammer out something, if it looks like he has to go, then yeah, I'm gonna move him. As far as free agents, Yamamoto's my number one target.
Yep.
I like Eddie Rodriguez. I don't love Urias, but I could live with someone like that. There's not a ton of guys I like. I don't like Aaron Nola at all.
No, I can't stand him.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that. There's a lot of guys that are just kind of fringe guys that I'm not really enamored with. I don't like Blake Snell. Saw somebody mention Severino. I don't want none of that. Jordan Montgomery, I guess, wouldn't be a horrible get. Yeah, there's guys out there. It's going to be interesting. We have a ton of prospects that we can trade, like everybody else said. We have options. It's not like we're pigeonholed here. Like what this trade deadline did for the Mets is it gave them options.
Correct.
We know Cohen has all the money in the world. He can spend it if he wants. We now have prospects that we can trade. We have major league talent that we could trade if we want to keep the prospects and we believe in the prospects and get rid of some of the guys. Like, I know Hayden doesn't want to hear it, but like McNeil, guys like that. So there's
Mauricio.
Ronnie Mauricio is an option to be traded as well. So there's lots of – that's what I like about this offseason. That's what makes it hard, too, to gauge what we're going to do because, like, we could sit here and speculate all day, but they have so many things that they can do, so many options up in the air. And the fact that we don't have a guy running the show yet, we don't know who that is. We assume it's Stearns, like I said, but that also plays a big part. Like I told Chris, and I think it was the last Interstate Mets reporter, one of them. Everything blends together these days, but I want the Mets, if Stearns is the guy, they need to do it as soon as the season's over. Lock him up because they need to all get in a room together and make a game plan and get a head start. Because if they wait till after the World Series is over, other teams are in play. Like I don't want that. I want, if this is going to get done, get it done quick as soon as you can, and then we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's just tons of options on the table. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I want the season to be over so we can get it started, get the hot stove rumors going.
Yeah,
I have a question. I have one question for you guys. Just like one answer thing. If Mets have to fill a position, the outfield position, it comes down to free agency, Bellinger versus Soler. Who are you paying? Who do you feel comfortable paying more?
Who was the second guy?
Soler, you have to backfill one offensive spot, whether it's DH or a position. You're paying Soler or Bellinger.
The thing with Bellinger is
I don't trust him.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, I could easily see him just
Agreed.
coming to New York and just mentally, and I get it, he played in LA, sure, but I could just see him coming to New York.
Yeah.
Mets or Yankees, either, I don't care.
Jason Bay all over again.
And just exactly a Jason Bay 2.0. I get it. He shortened up his stride. He shortened up his swing. The power went down a little bit, but he's getting on base at an elite level, and that's really all that matters. I'd probably go Soler, honestly. I know it's crazy.
That's a guy you can easily put behind Pete Alonso to protect him. He has power, and people are afraid of him. He's played.
He hit 40, 49 home runs.
He can play in big spots. I mean, World Series MVP.
And you can probably get him on a lot shorter term deal too. Yep. You can get him for like 2, 3 years, 4 years. That's better than Bellinger at 5, 6, 7 or whatever.
I was gonna say Bellinger. Bellinger was my first choice, and then I really started to get down and think about it. I was like, I'll probably pay Soler.
Well, you know what it is? Everybody's so infatuated because Bellinger was an MVP. So it's hard to. But again, I mean, he fell off the face of the map. I mean, the Dodgers didn't even want him. The Dodgers, who won everybody, didn't want him anymore. And I think Bellinger is the type of guy with his swing. You find one loophole, the guy's batting under 200. It's just Soler. I know is a guy. You know what Soler is? Soler is a guy that don't give a shit. I like guys that go out there and give it their all, and a guy that just doesn't give a damn, and you know what, does whatever the hell he wants to do. You're not going to tell him what to do, and he's not afraid of anybody. And I think the problem with this team, other than the performance on the field, we always, how many more times we're going to talk about this team being mentally soft? We need guys that have some fucking balls on this team, that are not afraid to do something, or just not. It feel like the Mets are always in a big spot. They always seem afraid. I want guys in this team that isn't afraid, and that is just balls to the wall and just does what they want to do. Because I think the 2022 Mets, before that Brave series, did what they wanted, and they weren't afraid to get in people's faces. And then once they got punched in the mouth, they never recovered. And it just shows me of a soft team. And I think that's why there's a lot of talk about changing things up this offseason, because how many more times are you going to lose with this core? Because if you sign Pete Alonso, you're stuck with Nimmo, Alonso, and McNeil for at least 3-4 more years. And that core is going to get old quickly. So you have to be 100% sure that's the core you want to roll with. Because if not, we're going to go through a lot of losing seasons with guys that put up decent numbers. So if we're not going to blame them, we're going to blame everybody else again. Because we're not blaming anybody. We haven't blamed Nimmo. We haven't blamed McNeil. We haven't blamed Alonso. You know why? Because those are the guys that people loved at some point or still love. And sooner or later, they got all the credit. They're going to start getting the blame. And you see Yankee fans slowly starting to change on Aaron Judge already. And it's year one of that new contract. He has another bad season or an injury-plagued season, Yankee fans are going to go nuts. And I think that's where the Mets are right now, is that as fast as Met fans change with Uncle Stevie, and now it's like, I want the Wilpons back, they're going to start changing their whole face on the core of this team if things don't go well. So final thoughts with you guys. Sean Reed-Foley is back, by the way, which I think could be a good addition to this bullpen next year. He came back from Tommy John, so that's a good sign. Diaz, there's reports now he's hitting 93 to 95 on the gun. He did bullpen simulations, and I think he did like live batting practice or something like that. So Diaz says he wants to come back. Would you bring him back for like the last week of the season just to get his feet wet going into the offseason? I see Chris shaking his head, so we'll start with you.
No, I'm not bringing him back. It's meaningless. Absolutely meaningless. He can have all spring training to get back under his feet. I know he has all the intentions in the world to pitch as well, but it's not smart. It's not a smart investment. If you're the New York Mets to trot him back out there. There was a good point. He gets back out there. He starts just chucking the ball like we all know he can, gets back up to 98, 99, just full force whip. And, something bad happens, God forbid. And then you're back at a situation where, he's back injured, and you got to be concerned about him going into 2024 again in a meaningless game that he could have been sitting out in against the Marlins in September. It's not a smart idea. Don't do it. I respect him. I respect how quickly he's recovered. I respect his passion for wanting to get back on the mound. He's a guy that has definitely been part of the reason why the Mets have struggled so far, is not having Edwin Diaz. But you can't do it. It's not a good idea. But just no. That's a no for me.
Nelson, final thoughts about everything we talked about and a little bit about Diaz coming back, possibly.
Yeah, I know he wants to come back. I know they probably will let him if he is deemed ready. They might let him pitch a game or two. I'd play it safe and not do it, but they're gonna do what they're gonna do. I don't think if he wants to come back that bad, which he has said it all year, are they gonna piss him off if they tell him no? Like that makes me a little nervous too. I mean, he signed anyway, but I don't really want to ruffle his feathers going into the offseason either. Like, if he really wants to come back that bad, then throw him in a game, I guess. I personally would prefer if it didn't happen. Yeah. Other than that, man, I hope they hammer out the Alonso thing. Eventually, I think they will. I think there's a lot of posturing going on too. You never know. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to, anything can happen. I think eventually they'll work it out. And we'll see, man. It's going to be a fun off season. I truly believe that we're going to do what it takes to put a competitive team on the field next year. And I'm excited to see what a lot of these young kids can do too. So, yeah, it'll be fun. It's been a good show. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to Amish Country Mets fan. I appreciate everybody watching. And yeah, let's go Mets.
All right, Hayden, final thoughts about Diaz and what we talked about today, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much concur with pretty much what everyone's saying. There's no need on bringing back Diaz for what? For fans to hear narco? No, I don't. That's a stupid excuse. Have him come back next year, like everyone said. Let him get back into himself in the offseason if he wants to, do his routine, go into spring training, just work on the mechanics, work on his arsenal, just all that stuff, and then let him start in spring training and start fresh in March or April, whenever the season starts. There's no point what's the point of bringing it back? I mean, you want to hear narco? Cool. Go on Spotify and listen to it. I mean, there's no point. God forbid he goes out there and gets hurt. I mean, like Chris said, then we're going to sit here next year at this time and say the same stuff. How did he get hurt? He, not dissing on the WBC, but keep in mind, he got hurt in a game that wasn't essentially, huge and celebrating. So, but, it happens. It's unfortunate. So no point in bringing him back this season. Just have him healthy, have him ready. And when it comes to next year, it comes to Alonso, keep him, or I'm going to be a nice Marlins fan. And, let's go Mets. Let's go baseball. And I think it's going to be an interesting offseason. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of we're going to see all the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, that's otherwise. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Good to be back here. And, let's get it, guys.
Absolutely, guys. So, again, there's one thing that's going to be for certain. There's going to be a lot of content for all of us in the offseason for sure. I mean, you might get sick of our faces in the offseason for sure, but make sure you tune in. That's the important part. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe to all the channels, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Another Mets RoundTable podcast is at an end. Enjoy the rest of the Met game if you're watching it. And, guys, by the way, I am doing a Cowboys channel. I got forced into it by another friend of mine. So I will no problem coming on your guys' football channels as well. So if you are a Giants fan, a couple of you guys are, I don't mind popping up on the Cowboys and Giants Sunday night. So
let's do it. Let's do it.
Guys, for that. Have a great night. Let's go Mets. Have a great night, guys. Great show, guys. Have a good night.
Let's go DJ Stewart.